Welcome to Navigating Education, the podcast that can help educators from around the world navigate not only the present, but also the future. Through discussions of instruction, edtech, policy, and school leadership, we're here to connect with you and educators from around the world to help them amplify student learning for the betterment of our students and their future. All right, good morning. Welcome to Navigating Education, the podcast. I'm Dr. Matt Rhodes, your host, and today for episode 73, we're going to be talking about really getting the most out of college. And I really wanted to spend some time on a few episodes talking about higher ed, and really our theme for the last number of episodes has been artificial intelligence and generative AI. And I really want to discuss a little bit really what is higher ed's place as our landscape continues to evolve, and then also to provide maybe a lens to help faculty, even students navigate this changing world. So I brought on a guest who is an author and does a lot of work consulting with universities across the country. And his book, How to Get the Most Out of College, 127 Ways to Make Connections, Make It Work for You, and Make a Difference. So we have Elliot Felix here, and he has a lot of experience with going into these schools, working with faculty, administration, as well as students to, I really think, to make it a better experience for everyone involved. So welcome.
Thanks, Matt. Good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. And as someone that is faculty at a number of universities, and I've experienced many different universities in my career, each place is different. Each offers something to someone different. I think it's, in my opinion, it's about fit. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that fit matters because you'll get the most out of it if you have that fit. So I'm looking forward to hearing your perspective about that. But before we jump into really this topic, I want to let our audience know a little bit about who you are and really, your background in education. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your background in education and how did you get to where you're at now?
Well, where I'm at is really excited and excited to talk to you today, excited about the future of higher ed, and excited about how colleges and universities can enable student success. And that's really my mission. So I'm on a mission to help students succeed, and really to do that by working with colleges and universities to help them understand their students, who they are, how their needs are changing, and then to change their spaces, their support services, their technology to better meet those needs. And then, after working with more than 100 colleges and universities, I've come to understand how students succeed, how college works, and wanted to pass that along to students and parents so they could make it work for them, especially at a time when a lot of folks are questioning the value of college and thinking about how do they get the most out of it, how do they get a return on their investment of time and money. I was excited to share what I've learned, and my background is actually in architecture. I started off as an architect working on educational spaces, and then realized, gosh, we don't know a lot about the people, the faculty, the students, the staff that are working in these spaces, or the scientists, the researchers, and so really wanted to better understand people to make better places for them. And in doing so, went back to grad school at MIT, had a great time, and I kind of went into MIT as an architect and came out more as a designer and a strategist. And then I found this company that actually wrote the design brief. So it was our job to talk to the people, to do the research, to figure out the culture, the curriculum, the campus, and define the problem to be solved. And after doing that for a while, I realized, gosh, there's so much potential here, but we only have one tool in the toolbox to help people, which is to change your space or build more of it. And so I started Brightspot as a strategy consultancy to help with not just the space, but the student services, the staffing, the technology systems. And we've been lucky enough to work for, I think, almost 120 colleges and universities now. And about 3 years ago, we were acquired by a global consulting and engineering firm called Happold. So now we can help even more students. And over the years, I think we've impacted about 1 million students in terms of the folks that have gone to a building or used a service or talked to staff or logged onto a system. So I'm excited for the next 1 million students.
Wow, that's definitely hashtag impact there in terms of really, your work has really provided some sort of positive impact for those students and those institutions. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that work there. So as we move into this conversation, I know that there's going to be some general questions I want to ask you regarding like making connections at college. How do you navigate successfully where we're at in 2023? But I want to first talk about really the elephant in the room, which is generative AI, and really how do you think these institutions are going to have to integrate this into all aspects, and also continue to have relevancy in this world? Because I think that many people are quick to jump and say, hey, everyone with an AI assistant in their back pocket, do they ultimately need to get this additional education and experience now versus and spend a lot of money and time doing this? So tell me a little bit about your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to think about the role that AI can play in higher ed and many roles, in fact. And as I think about the future, I find it helpful to think about mindsets, skill sets, and tool sets. Right? There's ways of thinking, there's knowledge and ability, and then there's the tools we use. And I think some of these things are timeless, like the ability to communicate, the ability to collaborate, creativity, curiosity, critical thinking, problem solving. There's always going to be a need for those, and those are evergreen. And I think those are the things that universities and colleges, when they're working well, do so well. They give students a chance to communicate, to write, to create a video, to create a prototype, to make a presentation, to work on a project with their peers, maybe with a local company or a community group to make an impact. So I think there's a lot of timeless mindsets and skill sets that students can learn, which will always be valuable. But I think new tools arise, and they require new skills. And I think I think that may be about writing a good prompt, right? It might be any number of new skills that we have to learn. And I think AI is one of those new tools, and it's on the order of the internet in terms of its impact. And I think it's the latest in a set of long line of tools, maybe the most powerful one ever, because it's not just a tool, it's kind of a team. So I think the best analogy is to think about AI as a series of team members that are working with you. It's an assistant, it's an editor, it's a brainstorming partner, it's a coach, it's a researcher, and so that's going to beget all sorts of new skills about how to manage new kinds of team members, giving feedback, providing direction, defining roles, integration, synthesis, analysis. So I think it's an exciting new tool to learn. maybe the most powerful one ever, and that's going to require all sorts of new skills, but it's also going to require the evergreen set of things like creativity and collaboration and critical thinking and communication that colleges and universities do so well, and I think will into the future.
How do you think that if you were advising a university about this, what would be the first thing that you would advise them to help them navigate where we're at with generative AI, and to create a strategy to put themselves in the best position to continue to recruit students, as well as provide opportunities for them that are relevant?
I would say to change their mindset, or maybe not change their mindset, but be sure they're not adopting a kind of a reactive protectionist mindset, where basically it's just about banning new stuff that you're afraid of, and instead it's finding ways to channel it in positive directions. I remember, like, when my kids are 5 and 8, and I remember, like, when my daughter was pretty young, we went over to we were at a friend's birthday party, and one of the kids was like using the hose and, like, splashing other people who did not want to get wet. And there's one approach to that, which is to say, like, don't use the hose. But, like, what I saw that day was, like, next level parenting. And this other dad was like, hey, could you water those plants? Point the hose towards something positive. And I think if the goal is to tell a bunch of people to not use new amazing stuff, you're not going to have much success. But if you can channel it into specific projects, give people guidance, enable experimentation, I think that's much, that's you'll feel a lot less like Sisyphus, and have a much more productive way forward.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in that camp as well. Regarding, let's just try to point it to the best, positive things, or things that are practical, and things that can benefit us all. So as we kind of move on from that topic, I want to talk a little bit about this notion of, navigating college. My primary role is I work as a coordinator in adult education for ed tech and instruction. So we try to get a lot of our students to transition, whether that's to the community college or to employment opportunities for them. And we also, while the students are with us at our institutions, try to create a sense of, belonging, community, as well as support along the way. So I think there's a lot of similarities between a lot of these institutions. I think for a lot of students, there's a lot of complexities with navigating, especially if you're a first year student. How do you find that sense of belonging? How do you ensure that you find people that are like you, but also maybe have different ideas? So what are some of your strategies to build a sense of belonging in the college environment?
Well, I'm glad you raised belonging, because I see it as it's not on the bottom of Maslow's pyramid, but it's pretty darn important up there with food and shelter. Because I think belonging is like the lens that you see your college through. So if you feel that sense of connection, if you feel like you matter, if you feel like you're part of something, then it kind of like brightens your view. But if you don't, it like darkens and dampens everything you're experiencing, everything you're going through. And I think the one of the books that's always been foundational for me is the Robert Putnam Bowling Alone sociologist, or American sociologist, where he talks about there's within and across groups, there's bridging and there's bonding capital. So bonding capital is what binds you together, and bridging capital is what connects you to other groups. And so I think so much of a great college experience is finding your people and being with people that are you can relate to, that are you share something in common with, whether it's whether it's a sport or a race or a religion or an ethnicity or an identity or another identity and interest, but also folks that are different from you. And so I think that's really the key to belonging is you have to find your safe spaces, so that could be a pride center, it could be a veteran center, it could be the French house, it could, and where you have some kind of something shared. And I think that gives you that sense of safety and confidence to then venture out and find people that you share something with, but maybe not as many things. And then you can take risks and you can have support, because what you're thinking about is like, maybe you're a high achieving student and you get your first bad grade in college. Like who are you going to turn to, or who are you going to turn to figure out, to read between the lines and figure out what courses to take, or to learn about, all the different support services that are offered. Most colleges have a writing center that'll help you write more effectively. They have a data lab or data studio, statistics center that'll help you visualize and analyze data better. They have a presentation or communication center that'll help you make better presentations, record you, give you real-time feedback. Obviously the library to help you with research. So I think it's really about finding people that are different than you, the same as you, have the bridging and the bonding capital, and use that to get advice on different ways to succeed, and then also support along the way.
Yeah, I mean, what I heard you say essentially is just have a space for everyone that they can go to. And also, I think that what a lot of, institutions struggle with is that they have so many supports for students. It's just essentially like letting students know about them and how do they get the students involved in participating in those supports. So
Right.
that's that notion of, I think, just delivering those supports and getting them involved. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I think from just my own personal experiences in college, I think that at times when I was, apprehensive about joining things, I missed out. But when I did, I always got something out of those opportunities. So I think that a lot of students just need to take that step and be okay with maybe taking that risk, or that they think it may be a risk to get involved in something, and to enjoy that opportunity versus be more reclusive and just focusing on just your studies. So yeah, I think really interesting. So we go into now, we talk about this sense of belonging, but how can we make connections throughout the university in these spaces? But also, I want to think about this theme of transition into different aspects of life, whether it's a job or something else. How can college students make, authentic connections with people, but also experts within the field, other institutions, employers, to secure these opportunities for, experiential learning, like an internship, and then make a successful transition to the job market? A lot of what I hear from large employers is that students that are graduating are having really difficulty navigating, I think, that collaboration and that communication piece. So I think that with that lens in place, how do you think we can set students up for these types of experiences to build those skills?
Well, I think there's there's a unmistakable pattern I'm seeing of course career integration, which I think is a really great thing, because the old paradigm was, students should go to the career center or the career development center, in spare time that they don't have. And the result of that is that, if they go, it's kind of toward the end of their education. Meanwhile, you've got this amazingly valuable resource there that can do more than, put on obviously they can put on a career fair, and they do those well, but they can help you with Handshake. They can help you with LinkedIn. They can take a great headshot. They can coach you through an interview. They can help you figure out a career path. They can help you get connected to alumni. And so what I love to see is bringing the career into the classroom, whether it's guest speakers, whether it's a 4-credit class on career exploration and development. And one of the things that's really getting more and more popular as that integration happens is the idea of life design, like that you can take design thinking and you can use it to imagine your future life, and then you can kind of work backwards to think about the educational experiences you need to get there. And when I think about design thinking, there are maybe at least 3 big ideas. One is understanding people, in this case yourself. The other is thinking in systems and making connections, and the last is prototyping and trying things out. And so if you're designing your life, then you can think about shadowing someone as a kind of a prototype, as an experiment. What's their day like? How do they spend their time? Could you imagine yourself doing those kinds of things? And you could think about an informational interview as a kind of a prototype of a job. You can think about an internship as a kind of a prototype of a job. And each of these, you're trying to learn more. And if you shadow someone and you actually can't imagine yourself doing that, that's a win, right? Because better to find out after spending a few hours than spending, months and months, or years and years. So I think applying design thinking to your life and doing it in a way so that you're not only testing things out, but you're building relationships, right? Because like now you have that connection for the person you shadowed, or the informational interview, or the visit, the tour. And so I think if institutions and students can think about connecting career and classroom and doing it in ways that encourage like experimentation, lowering the stakes, increasing the rate at which people can learn and build these relationships, so much the better. And I think that has not only the added benefit of helping people find a career path, it's also a sense of purpose. And I'm seeing more and more studies. The Harvard School of Education just put one out talking about how so many college-age people feel like they're lacking a sense of direction or purpose. And I think that career can provide that, because then that's what you're, when things get difficult, like that's what you're struggling for. That's what you're working toward. And it just makes everything much more meaningful. So I'm a big fan of class career integration, and finding the purpose and the path to it, and testing out along the way.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that notion of purpose, and also incorporating those elements of design thinking into the curriculum, are key. I really think that when you are paying to go to a university class, you want to do something a little bit outside the box, not only just to learn content, but to apply principles and strategies that can help you just in everything in your life. And I really like how you are big on the design thinking strategies, because incorporating them really into the curriculum really can create these authentic learning experiences, especially if you can bring in, I like, for example, when at the beginning of course, maybe an expert is brought in and they describe kind of like what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Say it's like an engineer and you're taking an electrical engineering course. Then they present, maybe possibly the professor asks them like to present the problem for much of the course that they want them to further investigate and to build the necessary skills in to ultimately solve. So I like when, and this works also too, when you're beginning a unit in an elementary school, you bring in a local expert that does something in the community. They discuss what they do, but they also present a question or a problem that relates to that learning objective. And then that begins the unit of study. And, ultimately, sometimes at the end, the expert comes back and sees that finished work product, whether it was something that was project-based or that culminating learning experience. So I really like that notion as well. I really think that universities need to really focus on, and I think grad schools do this better than undergrad. I think undergrad needs to shift this way, is putting in courses, embedding them within employers, locations, especially off campus. So maybe having a lot of your major courses at a facility, and you get an opportunity to actually get your hands wet with something that that company may be working on, or maybe there's a collaboration with the university. I really think getting out there and leaving the university environment and getting those opportunities is really essential.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. Finding those campus company connections, I think, are great. And it could be a guest speaker. It could be like a real world project you're working on for your class that gives you a chance to apply something. Could even be a co-op. I mean, I think only 2% of undergrads do co-ops now, which is crazy low. And I think the more you can integrate your classes in your career, it just gives you a chance to make those connections, to try things out. It gives you like a better, it makes everything more meaningful.
Definitely. I think it's all about, if you're spending a lot of time and money on something, you want it to be meaningful and something that can really make that impact to you. And that brings me to a question that I don't have on this list, but how should students, if you're applying to university next fall, how can you expect them to afford that university? How could you justify taking out loans for university? I always now, when I think about it now, I tell students, go to the local community college for a couple years and then transfer, so that you don't have that burden of more student debt, especially if they're going into more of a white collar profession. So such as, if you got to go to grad school or law school or become a medical doctor, if you're going to go that route, I always recommend going and getting your general ed done, because you never know how much more schooling you're going to need, and therefore the cost. So what do you suggest in this realm for, I think, justifying the cost, but also navigating just the overall cost of higher ed?
Well, I think if you're thinking about return on investment, there's two sides to the equation, right? What's the investment? What's the cost, and then what's the return? So you can certainly try and reduce the investment, right, by going to an institution that offers more aid, or has a lower price, or both, or the 2-year college for the first 2 years, or amassing as many credits as possible. There are a lot of places now, like Purdue has this degree in 3. There's a lot of places that are focused on accelerated time to graduation. So I think one part of the problem you can work is the cost side of the equation. and you can look for places that are lower cost, or reduce the time, or higher aid, or both. And then I think the other is on the return side, and I think they're great resources now. I think that like the college scorecard, is an amazing tool for people to understand, what's my salary going to be given my potential major, because taking on debt may not be an issue if if the salary is there to support it, right? Like, few people are questioning the payback of an MBA. Normally there's like a 2 to 5 year payback on most top MBAs. So at least in the studies I've read. So I think it's a question of, can you be smart about the investment of both time and money, and then can you look for a return? And while the college scorecard or pay scale or some of these other ROI, Third Way has a great analysis using the college scorecard data. I think they're looking at the average. So of course there is some things can get lost in that, but I think the strategies you're talking about are, reduce the cost and maximize the return. Make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I just want, anyone that's listening to this, if you're a counselor, teacher, etc., I think just really providing that framework for students so that they can then further investigate and see what would be the best return on their investment. And I always tell students this now is that go into a profession. I mean, sometimes your profession will change, and I think that in the world we live in, you're constantly changing what you're doing. I think it all matters on those foundational skills. Find a set of foundational skills that are attractive now, but also put yourself in the position where you're constantly going to take those skills and have to continue learning, so that you can then go into things that are maybe don't even exist now, but in 2 to 5 years it could be something where those skills could be very attractive.
Yeah, and I think, like, to the point about those skills, if folks remember that it's not just where you go but how you go to college that matters, I think that can take a lot of the pressure off. I mean, there's a famous study estimating the payoff, Kruger and Dale study, that basically said where you go matters a lot less than how you go. The recent Opportunity Insights study affirmed that, but it also affirmed that on average, but it did find, some real advantages for, the top income percent at elite universities. But I think I think people focus too much on where to go to college and not enough on how to go to college. And if there are lots of things that have proven ROI, like being a student leader, doing real world projects, doing a co-op, studying abroad, doing an internship, having a mentor, all these things pay off. And if you focus just as much on what you do while you're there, you get more out of it, and it takes a little bit of the pressure off that, I think your point about fit is a really good one, because finding a place is going to help you do the right things, but it's not entirely about the where. It's as much about the how.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that's a good, what we talked about is a good framework for if you're a parent, or if you're a student, or if you're an educator. I think just really discuss that with that person that is likely going to be going into higher ed. And I think that fit theme also fits on where you're working as well. I think if you're able to figure that out at an earlier age, especially where you're going to school, then you may have that similar skill set to when you're working in the workplace and trying to find that fit, whether it's that role or or that opportunity with that employer. So it's something that we should really definitely take into consideration.
For
So as
sure.
we finish up here, what tips and advice do you have for educators right now in November 2023 to best navigate education at this time?
Well, I think we're certainly at an interesting time because there's so much is changing. Who students are, what they need, new technology, financial uncertainty, um, and I think what I would say is like think about your activities as a portfolio, and like any portfolio, you want to diversify it, and so you don't want all your eggs in one basket. So I think just as we were talking about with AI, there are certain skills, habits of mind that are timeless. And I think you want to spend some of your time focusing on, on those things. It may be the course you've been teaching for a long time that's tried and true and proven. And then, there are other things that are, that are new that, that maybe there's room for carving out some time for experimentation. And I think so balancing the kind of like tradition and structure and continuity with change, I think is important. And I think also just recognizing that we're in a time of change, that when you experiment, people are going to make mistakes, and as long as you're not making them more than once, let's say, and you're learning from them, I think that's okay. So I think balance your portfolio of tradition and innovation in terms of like how you spend your time, and be kind to yourself and adopt a growth mindset, so that these setbacks are all something you can learn from.
I love just thinking of the theme of that portfolio. Think of yourself as that portfolio, and just document things, provide evidence of what you're doing, and share it with the world. I think we live in a place where that definitely is something that you can do, and I think that students can, um, you know, share all the things that they've done to the world. It makes it a lot easier for them to make those connections and navigate it. And I like this notion of growth mindset, but also I'm going to add this notion of resiliency, because we're going to have those times where things are difficult, but we need to be resilient and use growth mindset during those times where resiliency is needed. And then also celebrate those times, when you go
Yeah.
through the valley versus, just celebrating when you're at the top of the mountain. So I think that if we can, ingrain that within students, they're going to be a lot more resilient to the changes of the world that they're living in. But overall, I really enjoyed the themes that you provided here, as well as the discussion that we had today on really, getting the most out of college. And I think that educators should check out your work. And how can they connect with you? And can you provide your website and social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So for information about higher ed strategy consulting, that's brightspotstrategy.com. And for information about the book and the articles I write and the talks I give, that's elliottfelix.com. And yeah, I'm excited to hear from folks. And like I said, I'm in it for the impact, and really on a mission to enable student success. And I hope this helps students succeed, as well as educators in their work as well.
Definitely. I think that you're definitely making an impact. Thank you so much for joining today. And you can catch
Thanks, Matt.
all the podcast episodes on Spotify, Apple, Google, and all the major podcast players. You can find this recording on YouTube as well as all the other 72 episodes of the podcast. You can follow me at Matt Rhodes 1990 on X/Twitter, at Matthew Rhodes on LinkedIn, and Dr. Rhodes EDU on Instagram. Be sure to check out the podcast and the books that I've written in my blog at MatthewRhodes.com. Until next time, looking forward to continuing the conversation for the next couple episodes before we end the year in 2023 and move into 2024. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic day.